Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Mess. So today we're going to continue the series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project, and surprise, surprise, Robert or FPGA Zoomsposs came out with one more core before the end of the year. No one really expected to see anything else because he was going to be on Christmas break, but he squeaked one more thing out and we're going to be testing it today. And it's going to require a little bit of an explanation as to what's going on, but do be aware I'm also doing some viewer request tests in this game, and one of the games that everyone wanted to see more of was the Dinosaur Planet Beta, a game that never technically released for Nintendo 64 developed by Rare. Last time I showed you this game, it definitely was not working very well at all. The frame rate was a slideshow. Today, it is very, very good. It is playable, or as far as a beta is concerned, it is technically playable. Now this new core is very interesting because off the top, you're not really going to see any sort of fundamental difference. What Robert has done underneath the hood is reduce down some of the logic requirements on certain components of the Nintendo 64, while also getting some of the cycles more accurate to original hardware. Because there are more things he's going to be adding in 2024, level of detail or LOD being one of the largest ones. But as I explained in a previous video, the core only can take up so much logic on the DE10 itself. That Cyclone V chip has 110,000 logic elements, but the core was hovering right around the 90k mark. You cannot max them out. So what Robert has done under the hood is made things more efficient so that he can add more things in the future. Things that need to be there, and you never know, maybe bonus features as well. So that is what this last core is. It's looking towards 2024 and all the fun things we're going to be getting in the core in the new year. Of course, I'm going to be covering each and every one of them. But again, back to the viewer request test. Dinosaur Planet is a very interesting game. This was slated to come out on the Nintendo 64, but it got pushed and pushed and pushed until it became a completely different game for the GameCube. But seeing it run here on the MiSTer FPGA Nintendo 64 core is awesome because this will run on real hardware. You do need to patch the files up to get them workable. But like I said, the last time I showed you Dinosaur Planet footage, it was basically running at like 2 to 4 frames per second. The cutscenes had a tendency to freeze midstream. Now everything is working as intended, or as much so as a beta ever would. This is not a finished game, this is just a prototype work in progress thing, so if you do see anything weird in the footage, it's impossible to say where the core starts and where the beta stops. And it would be fun in the future, maybe I'll do some comparisons on real hardware. But again, it's just amazing to see these extra experiences running because like I said, this will execute on real hardware if you have a flash card, so it should work here on the Nintendo 64 core. And running around in this quasi-open world in the game, like I said, the frame rate is just night and day from the last time we checked this, and I'm sure that's why a lot of people wanted to see more footage of Dinosaur Planet. It is one of the most well-known canceled Nintendo 64 games, so I'm not surprised that I keep seeing it in the requests. And again, I'm going to continue these request testing videos, so leave me a comment down below and tell me what game you want to see a follow-up on. Because at this point in time, I've probably gone through about 75% of the Nintendo 64 library, but there's even games that I forgot I hadn't tested. And before anybody asks, Jet Force Gemini is still not working. There still needs to be more done under the hood. This is Insane Friends Capture right here. He popped it up on Discord, and it's basically the same story. You'll start to get a little bit of the menu executing. There's going to be some graphical glitches here and there, and then it's definitely going to freeze. This is not a regression, it's not an improvement, it is still the same, it is just a little bit wonky. Hopefully the next core, you never know, we might be playing it. Now a game that absolutely everyone wanted to see tested again, and that's because the last time I showed it to you guys, it had graphical corruption and froze all the time, is Mortal Kombat 4. Now I actually have a really interesting issue with this capture. The game did bug out, but reading the internet, it seems like maybe this is actually a game bug and has something to do with the core in and of itself, because I couldn't replicate it and it stopped. But on the first match here, Scorpia completely freezes and does absolutely nothing whatsoever, but you will see that I can still pick him up and he freezes in air in another direction. It's almost like the AI completely broke on his model. Once that fight's over, everything works perfectly fine. So if you're aware of any sort of bugs in-game on Mortal Kombat 4 in real hardware, let me know down below because I'm highly suspicious of this actually just being a bug in the game. Because this game is not known for being the most stable or impressive release around, but it is still a ton of fun, and like I said, the last time we showed this to you, it was a slideshow and it would freeze. Now it seems to be running exactly like real hardware should, outside of that one freeze instance, and I still think that might just be the game code in and of itself. If you see anything out of place, let me know down below, but the music sounds quite good as well, so go ahead and listen for like 30 seconds and I'll be right back.
Round 1, fight! Excellent. Ninja wins.
You can tell that both the music as well as the sound effects and announcer there are muffled, but that's what it sounds like on real hardware as well. A lot of the Nintendo 64 games just had to compress their audio down to fit on a certain cartridge size, especially if the developers are trying to save money on not jumping up on cart size, because back in the day that memory was not cheap, so I'm sure that's what they did here. But again, it's another example of a game that is vastly improved since the last time we talked about it, and that's why coming back in for these retests is such a good time, just to see how far the core has improved, because last time I checked this, I would have classified as playable-ish. Now it seems like you can just 100% beat the game outside of that one bug, and I still think that is in the game code itself. Now somehow, and I am embarrassed about this, I have not yet tested Rush 2049. This is one of my favorite games on the Nintendo 64, although generally I do end up playing it on the Dreamcast, so if I'm going to pick. I had tested Rush, I had tested Rush 2, but somehow this one slipped my mind. Somebody requested it and said I had never tested it, so you guys are keeping me honest out there, because it is hard to keep track of everything. But you can tell right now Rush 2049 is working on the core, and it is working exceptionally well. This was never a game that ran 60 frames per second on the original hardware, that's why the Dreamcast version is the preferred one, but this to my memory seems to be running exactly the same as real hardware would, and in some instances it seems like it actually might be getting a couple frames extra per second than real hardware does, and that is the thing. The core can run faster than real hardware right now, and a lot of what was done in this current core release is improving those timings up. I'm sure once we get closer to a full release, there's going to be some sort of toggle to let this run as fast as it possibly can and to conform it down to the native speeds of an actual Nintendo 64. And man, that truck just cut me off there and destroyed me, and that is Rush 2049 to AT. This game is brutal and it is out to get you every single turn. The AI is ruthless. But this is just one of those games. I spent so much time playing this back in the day. I originally had it on Nintendo 64, then I picked it up later on Dreamcast, and it is one of my favorite arcade racing games of all time, and it is just so spectacular to see this running in FPGA on MiSTer, and I don't mind whatsoever that it is running faster, but that's the thing about the core development. Robert gets things working, he gets things playable, and maybe in that it ends up being slightly faster than it should. That's a lot of what he's working on right now, is getting that accuracy a little bit closer, and I totally screwed that up. I turned the switch off and ended up destroying myself, and that's why 2024 is going to be more fun to see, because he did claw back logic on this core. The footprint and the spacing of it is reduced compared to where it was, and to the layman that basically means if you had a 5-pound bucket of water and you dumped out maybe 10% of it, it would be easier to fill it back up versus losing the water over the edge. That's what Robert's doing here. He's just trimming out the fat, getting things running better, and saving space in the process. But another game everyone wanted to see, and I had forgotten to test, big thanks to Andy D for doing this one on the video, is the beta of Viewpoint, another unreleased Nintendo 64 game. And I wanted to throw a couple unreleased games here, just seemed kind of like a fun theming to the video. If you've never played a Viewpoint game before, this one is definitely up there as far as how good it is, and it does feel like it's basically a finished game that just never made it to retail, because sometimes games are cancelled mid-development process because they're not working out, and sometimes games are done, the developers or publishers lose confidence in making a profit and cancel it right before it goes to release, and Viewpoint here feels way more like one of those canceled after it was finished. But it's another awesome game you can play in the core, and it's got a rocking soundtrack. Go ahead and listen for 30 seconds, and I'll be right back. I did have to turn the volume down there about 15 decibels because this is one of the games within the core at normal volume that ends up being a little too loud. But that's pretty par for the course for real Nintendo 64 hardware. When I'm playing it on my PVM and speakers, I find one game will be too loud and the next game will be too quiet at the same volume. So you might want to go into the core volume settings, the master volume, and turn it down or up depending on what game you're playing. But if you've never played Viewpoint before, definitely check it out over the holiday break. The Nintendo 64 is not known for having a ton of shmups, so having another one, even if it never ever technically came out, definitely helps round out a very thin library on the shmup front. And again, it's another game that works perfectly in the core here. All of the graphics are drawing, the widescreen mode is working, everything about this game just feels like it should on real hardware. But the hard thing is, because it never actually released, if there is a bug or a glitch here, it would be near impossible to tell what it was coming from, if it's the core or the game, until I test this on real hardware. So this might be one of the tests I do when I actually compare a finished core to the Nintendo 64, just to see how it operates on a particular beta. But again, it's just such a fun game, and it's so great to be able to play a game like this on the core, because now that we have 100% of the retail library booting and most of them being playable, we get to go to things like betas, cancelled games, and prototypes to see whether or not they work as well. I haven't finished Viewpoint, I don't think Andy D did either, but it feels like a game that you could probably see the credits scroll on. And one update, because people have been asking, Perfect Dark is 100% beatable, and I think Andy D sent me this capture, but maybe it was Insane Friend, I'm not sure. But once you 100% Perfect Dark, you get this really trippy visual intro here that looks completely different than the main intro if you haven't finished the game to 100% yet. Definitely has some Tempest 2000 vibes, but this is from MiSTer Hardware, so we know 100% that you can 100% complete Perfect Dark. That's a lot of 100% even for me, but it's awesome to know something like this is possible on the core. It means it's shaping up so well. And I've had a lot of requests to see more Conker, and I'm not including a lot of it in this video. I'm actually going to save that for after Christmas, because I am running out of spots to actually schedule videos. I've got a very special Nintendo 64 MiSTer related Christmas episode coming very shortly, and I've also got an Alex 64 test as well on the arcade side of things. So I'm going to push Conker after the holiday, and Insane Friend posted these up on Discord. He always lets me use this footage, a big thanks to him again. But I'm going to sit down over the holiday and try to get some more Conker captures, because everyone is very curious to see how far you can get into this game. But again, this was a game that last month this time barely did anything whatsoever, and now outside of some random freezing, some sort of bug that needs to be fixed in the FPGA implementation, you can basically play Conker today. You're not going to be able to finish it without save states, but otherwise you're going to have a great time. And that's probably, hopefully, fingers crossed, the last core before Christmas, because if there is another core, generally you're probably going to hear about it after the holiday from me, because I've got a lot of stuff going on, I got a lot of food to make, and I've got a lot of friends to see. Leave me a comment down below and tell me what you're doing for the holiday season, whether you celebrate Hanukkah, Christmas, or anything in between. I would be curious what you guys are doing. But I can't wait to see what happens in 2024 for this core. Robert's done so much in 2023, and this core sets up a lot of foundational work that's going to happen in the new year, and I can't wait to cover it. Short of that, stay tuned for some more special videos, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.